Can a man be truly wise if he acknowledges his own ignorance? This is a question that echoed through the mind of one of the greatest thinkers of the ancient world, Socrates. Born in Athens in the year 469 before the Common Era, Socrates, the son of a stonemason and a midwife, would grow to question the very fabric of knowledge and wisdom. A man of humble beginnings, he would go on to shape the philosophical landscape for millennia to come. Socrates didn't write down his teachings. Instead, he engaged in dialogues, questioning and probing the beliefs of his fellow Athenians. These dialogues, preserved in the works of his students, such as Plato, form the basis of what we know about his philosophy today. It was in the agora, the bustling marketplace of Athens, where Socrates would often be found, questioning the so-called wise men of the city. This method of questioning, now known as the Socratic Method, was his primary tool for exposing contradictions in their beliefs. Socrates, they would say, surely you do not believe that there is no such thing as wisdom? To which he would respond, I know only that I know nothing. This statement, known as the Socratic Paradox, encapsulates his belief that true wisdom lies in recognizing one's own ignorance. However, Socrates' relentless questioning didn't sit well with everyone. In 399 before the Common Era, he was put on trial for corrupting the youth and not believing in the gods of the state. Despite being given the opportunity to escape, Socrates chose to drink the hemlock poison, staying true to his principles till the end. His death, however, was not in vain. His teachings lived on through his students, Plato and Xenophon, who continued to question, to ponder, and to seek wisdom in the face of ignorance. So to return to the question posed at the beginning, can a man be truly wise if he acknowledges his own ignorance? Socrates believed so. And his legacy, carried through the ages, challenges us to question, to doubt, and ultimately to seek our own understanding of wisdom. In review, the life of Socrates takes us on a journey from the streets of ancient Athens to the realm of philosophical thought. It introduces us to the Socratic Method, a technique of questioning that seeks to uncover truth and contradiction. We explore the Socratic Paradox, a statement that challenges our understanding of wisdom, and we witness the trial and death of a man who stayed true to his principles, even in the face of death. Thank you for joining this exploration of the life and philosophy of Socrates. Remember, the pursuit of wisdom begins with the acknowledgement of our own ignorance. It's a journey of questioning, of seeking, and of understanding. And who knows, perhaps in this journey we might just stumble upon a little wisdom of our own. Welcome to TopThangs, where we dive deep into the minds that molded our world. Today we embark on a journey back to ancient Athens to explore the life and legacy of Socrates, the father of Western philosophy. Stay with us as we unravel the threads of thought that continue to weave through the fabric of modern society. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy. Socrates stands as one of the most influential figures in human history, laying the foundations for Western philosophy. As a classical Greek philosopher born in Athens around 470 BCE, Socrates helped transform ancient Greek thought through his unrelenting probing of ethics, virtue, knowledge, reason, and the examined life. His revolutionary method of philosophical investigation and commitment to truth over dogma inspired modern rational thought and the spirit of scientific inquiry. While Socrates himself wrote nothing, his appearance as a central character in many of Plato's dialogues ensures his legacy survives. In these works, Socrates appears as a keen philosophical questioner, assessing moral, political, and epistemological issues through dialogue with fellow Athenians. By teaching Athens' youth to logically scrutinize conventional wisdom, Socrates came to be seen as a gadfly and even a threat to Athenian society during his lifetime. After being sentenced to death on trumped-up charges, his principled acceptance of his fate only strengthened his moral authority. To understand Socrates' monumental influence requires examining 5th century BCE Athens, analyzing Socrates' revolutionary method of inquiry, reviewing his trial and principles, assessing Plato's pivotal Portrayal, and tracing Socrates' immense intellectual legacy. By revolutionizing moral thought, emphasizing reason and logic, and defending the supreme value of truth, Socrates well deserves his place as the father of Western philosophy. His example continues inspiring philosophers and truth seekers. Historical context, 5th century Athens. Socrates lived during the high point of ancient Greek civilization. His lifetime saw Athens rise to imperial dominance over the Aegean through the Delian League. Athens' maritime power, wealth, and status as a hub of culture and democracy provided the background for Socrates' life and work. However, victory in the Persian Wars earlier in the 5th century had sparked growing Athenian arrogance, imperialism, and populist politics. These shifts provoked conservative reactions against Athenian democracy and its excesses later in Socrates' life. Democratic reforms in 508 BCE had expanded political rights for Athenian-born men while limiting the old nobility. Participatory assemblies gave citizens direct voice while lotteries chose magistrates and councillors. Paid public office and state-sponsored drama, arts and monuments created civic pride. However, demagogues like Pericles increasingly used rhetoric and bribery to compete for votes, weakening the democracy over time. And populist imperial policy sparks conflict with Sparta. Intellectually, Athens exceeded all Greek rivals with its art, architecture, drama, history, poetry, and philosophy. Pre-Socratic natural philosophers had turned thought away from mythology toward rationalism, materialism, and metaphysics. Sophists, popular educators, taught rhetoric, ethics, and politics for fees from the newly powerful merchant class. However, this sophistic education ultimately lacked depth and principle, prioritizing persuasion and relativism over truth. The vibrant yet troubled Athenian landscape provided the backdrop for Socrates' life and work. Against democratic excess and sophistry, Socrates employed rigorous reasoning and commitment to ethical principles to become a foundational figure in developing Western philosophy. His immense influence stems from this pivotal moment in history, Socrates' revolutionary method of philosophical inquiry. The main sources on Socrates' life and activities are the early dialogues of his student Plato. From these descriptions, Socrates appears as an intensely curious, barefoot pedagogue wandering Athens and engaging fellow citizens in impromptu dialogues assessing moral, political, or metaphysical questions. His true innovation was the Socratic method of inquiry, which transformed philosophy from abstract speculation toward rational inquiry and moral self-knowledge. The Socratic method begins by exposing the interlocutor's ignorance through a line of probing questions, aiming to reveal contradictions or logical inconsistencies latent in conventional notions. This intensive questioning strips away unwarranted assumptions to clarify concepts like courage, friendship, or justice. It turns the discussion inward to assess virtue and knowledge within oneself rather than speculating externally. Through collective dialogue, the interviewee experiences philosophical awakening. Socrates employed this dialectical method without pretense of his own expertise, describing himself as an intellectual midwife helping others bring knowledge to light. He focused on the universals underlying particulars to better understand their essences. His goal was uncovering objective ethical truths, not mere opinion or custom. Socrates saw philosophical inquiry as essential moral self-examination leading to wisdom and virtue. Some key features that exemplify the novel Socratic method include knowledge through cooperative yet adversarial dialogue, addressing moral and practical concerns over speculative metaphysics, questioning basic assumptions and accepted beliefs, pursuing logical consistency and universal definitions, inductive reasoning from examples to general principles, turning analysis inward to improve the soul or mind, arriving collectively at truth rather than proving one view. This new dialectical approach overturned philosophical complacency, spurring conceptual rigor and skepticism for traditionally accepted customs, beliefs, and hierarchies. By modeling honest intellectual inquiry and moral self-assessment, Socrates pioneered a paradigm shift toward conscientious, rational thought that fueled Western philosophy's evolution. Trial and execution of Socrates. Socrates' dedication to truth over convention ultimately provoked a democratic Athens in crisis to silence him. In 399 BCE, when Socrates was around 70, he faced charges of impiety and corrupting the youth. A jury comprising 500 Athenian men condemned him to death by hemlock poisoning. While his friends planned his escape from prison, Socrates accepted his fate, dying with legendary equanimity as he maintained the justness of his actions. The charges themselves had little merit but reflected growing conservative backlash against principles identified with Socrates. His skeptical questioning of received ideas seemed to undermine Athenian institutions and education. Associations with anti-democratic disciples like Alcibiades and Critias did not help. While philosophically committed to ethical improvement over sophistry and rhetoric, Socrates was blamed for the failures of his former students. His humble origins and resistance to flattery also offended the traditional elite. Yet criticizing Socrates posed risks given his eminent admirers and reputation for just living. Any potential prosecutors also risked public humiliation from Socrates' skilled counter-questioning during a trial. This motivated later interpretations that public scapegoating of Socrates benefited rival political factions vying for power in volatile Athens. His symbolic execution as the anti-democratic voice of backward-looking privilege paradoxically enhanced his cultural status as a forward-thinking martyr. Socrates' stoic death cemented his special place in history as an intellectual paragon. Despite opportunities to escape, Socrates submitted to even an unjust law rather than break his principles. Facing death calmly, he defended the importance of continual self-examination and care for moral truth to his last breath. The courage and integrity of Socrates' life and death inspired philosophical schools for millennia, amplifying his influence immensely. Plato's Portrayal in dialogues. Plato's Socratic dialogues, composed years after Socrates' death, creatively depict Socrates testing moral beliefs and questioning fellow Athenians using his signature dialectical method. While embellished as an artistic philosopher, the literary Socrates became the exemplar of wisdom and reason in Western thought, fueling philosophy's shift toward rational humanism and science. By not publishing treatises like earlier pre-Socratic philosophers, Socrates avoided dogmatic proclamations on truth. Plato's choice to honor Socrates through dialogues likewise highlighted dialectical inquiry over mere lecturing. Yet Plato adapted Socrates' method into more orderly, sequential inquiry compared to the often meandering real-life Socrates. In works like the Apology, Crito, Protagoras, and Republic, Plato develops Socrates as a paradigmatic searcher of ethical and metaphysical truth through discourse, humility, and reason. His persistence in questioning, moral integrity, and composure facing death personify philosophy at its best. The literary Socrates becomes the ideal archetype of the philosopher as rational contemplator of universal principles. While Plato injects much of his own theory into the dialogues the Socrates presented became the seminal philosopher for generations of students and intellectual successors. By dramatizing the process of rigorous dialectical inquiry, Plato promoted the Socratic method as the engine driving philosophy's development. The dialogues inspired schools of Socratic and Platonic reason across the Hellenistic world, laying foundations for the Western intellectual tradition. The immense intellectual legacy of Socrates. Socrates fundamentally shaped the trajectory of Western thought and values. Despite writing nothing himself, his appearances in works by students like Plato and Xenophon sparked a philosophic revolution through his example, method, and ideas. Some of the most significant and enduring impacts of Socrates include father of Western philosophy. Socrates defined central philosophy problems and methods that launched the Western intellectual tradition. His commitment to truth through reason established the philosophical enterprise, ethical humanism. By grounding philosophy in human ethics and virtue, Socrates shifted focus away from metaphysics and natural science. His moral self-examination placed humans, not gods or nature, at the center. Socratic Method. His dialectical approach overturned dogma and became the paradigm of reasoned inquiry. Socratic questioning remains fundamental to philosophical education and dialectic exchange. Independent thought, Socrates broke from stamped conventions and hierarchies, teaching Greeks to think for themselves, using critical reason rather than unquestioned traditions. Ideal of the philosopher. Socrates modeled the intellectual and moral integrity that became the aspirational model for philosophers in the Western canon. His example inspired millennia of truth seekers, pluralism, and debate. Socrates promoted beneficial adversarial collaboration in pursuing knowledge, seeding values of intellectual humility, diversity of thought, and the marketplace of ideas, logic, science, and reason. By insisting reason and evidence should guide conclusions, not authority or myth, Socrates opened the door for rationalism, skepticism, and the scientific method. Socrates crystallized the vocation of the philosopher as one who critically examines conventional beliefs and moral assumptions. In serving as the engine that drove Western philosophy's evolution, his immense influence persists today through both the Socratic method and the ideal of the philosopher he personified. Socrates will be forever remembered as the original sage who charted philosophy's enduring path, the exemplar who shaped philosophy's course. Born in Athens as it rapidly rose to imperial heights, Socrates employed rigorous dialectical inquiry to overcome the eristic sophistry and democratic excess he saw corrupting society. Executed for his principled questioning but immortalized by Plato, Socrates pioneered the methods and ideals that launched Western philosophy. By modeling reason's power to uncover universal ethical truths, he sparked an intellectual revolution that shifted Western thought toward rational humanism, inquiry, and science. While Socrates himself authored Nothing Survive, the Socratic figure dramatized in Plato's dialogues inspired schools of thought for centuries. Through modeling the twin philosophical virtues of logical rigor and humble truth-seeking, Socrates profoundly influenced philosophical education and the evolving Western intellectual tradition. By teaching Athens to reflect on virtue, wisdom, and the duties of citizenship, he critiqued complacent conformity, laying foundations for millennia of Western thought. As exemplar of the philosophical spirit who sacrificed his life for integrity, Socrates still personifies the thinker of principle seeking justice through reason. His dialectical method and commitment to moral examination endure as seminal philosophical contributions, shaping epistemology, logic, ethics, political thought, and education. Socrates' immense influence testifies to the power of critical inquiry guided by compassionate reason. The father of Western philosophy remains its guiding light. As we reflect on Socrates' profound influence on Western philosophy, we're reminded of the timeless value of questioning and critical thinking. Socrates championed the idea that an unexamined life is not worth living, urging us to scrutinize not just the world around us, but our own beliefs and values. This pursuit of knowledge and truth is as crucial today as it was in ancient Athens. But how do we apply Socratic methods in our modern world? Can the principles of rigorous questioning and ethical examination help us navigate the complex moral landscapes of the 21st century? Furthermore, as we stand on the shoulders of such a philosophical giant, we must ponder what new frontiers of thought we might explore. What are the contemporary equivalents of Socrates' dialogues in today's digital age? How can we encourage a global philosophical dialogue that respects diverse perspectives while seeking universal truths? I invite you, dear viewers, to join this ongoing conversation. What topics should we explore next? Are there modern-day Socrates among us, challenging societal norms and pushing the boundaries of conventional wisdom? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue this journey of inquiry together. Thank you for journeying with us through the streets of ancient Athens and into the mind of Socrates. If this voyage into the past has sparked a flame of curiosity in you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to TopThangs. Dive deeper into the dialogues of today by commenting your thoughts below. What philosophical quests should we undertake next? The path to wisdom is endless, and together we can explore its every turn.